What happens when one of Hollywood's most respected couples suddenly stops feeling untouchable? Not because of a breakup announcement, not because of a scandal being confirmed, but because of something far more subtle and far more powerful in today's digital world: a feeling. For months, fans believed the relationship between Jennifer Hudson and Common represented something rare in Hollywood. It wasn't loud, it wasn't performative, and it wasn't constantly feeding the internet with updates. Instead, it looked calm, grounded, and mature. Two highly successful artists who seemed to understand themselves well enough to build something without needing public validation every step of the way. But that calmness, ironically, became the first thing people started questioning. Because in today's world, silence doesn't stay neutral for long. It becomes a question. And once that question appears online, it spreads faster than any answer ever could. At first, nothing concrete changed. There was no official statement, no dramatic incident, and no moment that clearly signaled trouble. But in the age of constant visibility, relationships don't need events to become stories. They only need interpretation. Fans began noticing small details that, on their own, meant nothing: a lack of recent shared appearances, a quieter social media presence between the two, slight shifts in interview tone when discussing personal life. Individually, these moments were harmless, but together they created something dangerous in the digital imagination: pattern recognition without proof. And that's where the story began to take shape, not in reality, but in perception. Entertainment blogs started picking up the conversation. Social media users began comparing older interviews with newer ones, analyzing body language, timing, and even phrasing. Suddenly, what was once a private relationship between two people became a public investigation conducted by millions of strangers who all believed they were noticing something important. But the most important truth was missing from all of it: nothing had actually been confirmed. Still, the narrative didn't slow down. If anything, the lack of information made it grow stronger. Because when people don't have answers, they don't stop. They fill in the blanks themselves. And in this case, the blanks turned into speculation. This is not a story unique to Jennifer Hudson or Common. It is a pattern that repeats itself across celebrity culture again and again. A public figure becomes less visible. Fans begin to notice. A theory is formed. That theory gets repeated, and repetition slowly transforms uncertainty into assumed truth. What makes this process so powerful is that it doesn't require evidence, it only requires engagement, and engagement feeds the cycle. As speculation around Jennifer Hudson and Common grew, online discussions began splitting into two camps. One group insisted that people were overreacting to normal relationship privacy, that not everything needed to be documented or explained to the public. But the other group, however, believed that something had clearly shifted behind the scenes, even if no one had proof yet. And the longer the silence continued, the more intense both sides became. Because silence is never empty in celebrity culture. It becomes a canvas. People paint it however they want. Eventually, the pressure reached a point where a response felt inevitable. Fans were waiting, blogs were predicting, and the narrative had already escaped the control of facts. That's when Jennifer Hudson finally addressed the growing speculation. But instead of delivering a dramatic revelation or feeding into the controversy, her response leaned toward calmness, dignity, and restraint. It was the kind of statement that didn't escalate emotions, but also didn't satisfy the growing curiosity of an audience that had already decided there must be more to the story. And that's where the unexpected shift happened. Because when one voice enters the conversation but doesn't fully satisfy it, attention naturally moves to the other. People began asking, if Jennifer Hudson has spoken, why hasn't Common responded? And that question changed everything. Silence is one of the most misunderstood forces in celebrity culture. In everyday life, silence is neutral. It simply means nothing is being said. But in the public eye, silence becomes interpretive. It is assigned meaning by whoever is watching. In the case of Common, the lack of immediate public response created a new layer of speculation. Some fans believed it was intentional, a way to avoid feeding unnecessary drama. Others interpreted it as avoidance, assuming that silence meant there was something too complicated or too uncomfortable to address publicly. And once again, the internet did what it always does. It filled the gap. Articles multiplied, commentary videos appeared across platforms. Every small detail from past interviews was resurfaced and reanalyzed under a new lens. Even harmless moments from months earlier were reframed as possible clues. But the truth remained unchanged. There was still no confirmed conflict, no verified issue, and no factual breakdown in the relationship, only interpretation. And interpretation is powerful enough to feel like reality when repeated often enough. At a certain point, stories like this stop being about the people involved and start becoming about the audience itself. What people are really engaging with is not the relationship of Jennifer Hudson and Common. It is the structure of uncertainty, the emotional tension of not knowing, and the satisfaction of forming theories that feel meaningful. This is why celebrity speculation spreads so easily. It transforms passive viewers into active participants. Everyone becomes an investigator, a critic, or a storyteller. And in that environment, truth becomes less important than momentum. Even without confirmation, the narrative surrounding Jennifer Hudson and Common continued evolving because it was being shaped collectively by millions of interpretations. Each post added weight, each video added context, each comment section added conviction, but none of it added certainty. And that's the paradox at the center of modern celebrity culture. The more people talk about something, the less they actually know about it. If you strip away the speculation, the reactions, and the online theories, what remains is surprisingly simple. Two public figures, a private relationship, and a public that has become deeply accustomed to having access to everything. But not everything is meant to be accessible, and that is where the tension truly lies. Because the real story here is not whether something dramatic happened between Jennifer Hudson and Common. The real story is how quickly a narrative can form without confirmation, and how strongly people can believe in something they have never actually seen proven. At no point was there verified evidence of a breakup or crisis, yet the conversation reached global scale. That alone says more about modern media behavior than it does about the individuals involved. So where does that leave us? It leaves us with uncertainty, but not necessarily conflict. It leaves us with interpretation, but not confirmation. And most importantly, it leaves us with a reminder about how easily perception can shape belief. As for Jennifer Hudson and Common, only they know the full reality of their relationship behind closed doors. The public only sees fragments, moments, quotes, appearances, and silence, all of which can be rearranged into almost any story depending on who is watching. And that is the final truth this situation reveals. In the digital age, stories don't wait for facts anymore. They build themselves first. And truth arrives much later, if at all. Because sometimes the most viral stories in Hollywood were never stories in the first place, just questions that never got answered.